All right, everyone. Chapter 4, Lesson 4.1, Modeling Projects. This entire unit, Chapter 4, is all about tasks and completion of tasks within large projects. Okay? So, for example, this first, on the first slide of the file, you have a project of finishing the yearbook before the deadline is up, and you have all these tasks to do to create the yearbook. You have to buy the film, you have to load the camera, take photos, develop the film, design the layout, yada yada yada. And each task takes an allotted amount of time to complete. Now, the thing with tasks and projects like this, you cannot go on to future tasks until previous tasks are completed. Those have a special name. They're called prerequisites. See this term right here, prerequisite, on the next slide? So the very first tasks usually have no prerequisites. Like buying the film has no prerequisite. You do that first, okay? But loading the camera, you cannot do until you have the film. Now, I know this is an old example. Cameras are digital now. You don't need to actually buy film anymore for cameras, but you get the point. So you can't do subsequent tasks until you do previous tasks because they require things to be done first in order to proceed to the next task. So you will usually see these problems laid out in a graphical diagram like this. See this diagram? This is called a task diagram. Okay? Task diagram or a task map. You could call it whatever you want. But it lets you, it's like a flow chart that lets you know which tasks you could do before proceeding to other tasks. So like you could start with task A over here, and then you go to task B, and then from there you could either go to C or E, because if you look at up here, these prerequisites determine which tasks you're allowed to proceed to. So A has no prerequisites. See how it's none right there? But B has a prerequisite of A. See this next prerequisite? So you cannot go to task B until you've done task A. And that, in this task diagram, that is denoted by this arrow right here. See this arrow? From A to B? That means that A is the prerequisite of B. So anytime you have a prerequisite, you will have an arrow going from the prerequisite to the next task. That's what all these arrows indicate. This means that C, task C, has a prerequisite of B. And then this arrow down here indicates that task E has a prerequisite of B. And you'll see that up here in these tasks. We said task C has a prerequisite of B, right? See that prerequisite right there? We also said task E has a prerequisite of B. Here's task E, here's the prerequisite B. Okay, so just get used to this prerequisite concept in this first video, that you cannot graduate into a future task until a previous task is completed, and that's the prerequisite.